we need to get representation.
You mean like an agent?
Like an agent or a manager or something, yeah. I'm here to propose.
You say we, but...
It's going to be me.
Yeah.
And here's why it's going to be me. Because look at me and look at you.
Well, I think I need an acting agent. I think I could get roles just on how it
You mean someone to pretend to be your agent?
Why would they pretend?
I don't know why they would pretend, but all I'm saying, if it's go into the room and talk to somebody and pitch to them
why I'm so great.
I need to go in there by myself, because if I come in with you and this is my I can't get rid of him.
I'm your plus one, well, yeah. I'm your plus half.
Here's this guy that won't go away. He's part of the package deal. We need to go in there, put our best foot forward.
Which would be your foot.
Right, my foot. And then say, here we go. And then rope them in. It's kind of like going out on a date and convincing somebody to go out on a date with you, and then going, oh, by the way, I also have 5 kids.
Get them all the way to the bedroom, and then you get naked, and they see, oh. But, it's too late at that point. You have to pretend you're okay.
I've never had that problem. You... Oh. Again, we're back to the you thing. So yeah, just keep that in mind. I'm not trying to leave you out, even though that would be nice. I'm not trying to leave you out. I'm just gotta,
Yeah.
It's like when you go on your interview, you put your tie on and everything. Leaving you behind is like putting my tie on. So.
An agent for what? Writing? Directing?
Sure.
There's no such thing.
Writing.
You can have a writing agent it's got to be creative. Well,
writing. A writing agent.
Yeah, writing or acting. I've never heard of an agent for.
No,
else.
If you're good at something, there's an agent for it.
But I've never heard of.
That's because you don't pay attention.
I don't know. I don't think that's a thing.
It is a thing. Why are we even arguing about this?
I've never heard anyone say, "Well, my directing agent got me another directing job."
You don't say directing agent. You say my agent.
You don't get... I don't... You show me. Prove it.
Well, Look, there are agents who represent whoever... If you're good at something and they can make money off of you, there's an agent to represent you.
Yeah.
Right.
So why don't you be my agent? You can make money off of me.
I can't make money off of you.
Why not?
You don't fucking do anything.
I'm doing this right now.
Yeah. Right. This is a real profitable venture. Okay, everybody, quiet on the set.
The Film Reverie podcast, take 69.
And action. Hello, Film Reverie listeners. This is Michael Beckemeyer.
And yet another episode of Film Reverie. I'm Balding Ewok.
And today we have with us Briana Hansen. Am I saying it right? Mm-hmm. Hansen.
Yeah.
From the Director of Writer Outreach for Roadmap Writers. And she works with Roadmap Writers and Joey Tuccio. And she's also a writer and a comedian. We'll talk to her about all that stuff. But first, will you just tell us a little about yourself and what you do and what Roadmap Writers does?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said I work with Joey, because let's be real, he is the sun around which we all revolve. He is such a great guy. I'm obsessed with Joey. So Director of Writer Outreach is just basically helping writers. So that means if you have a question or a complaint or something that you want to see done that we're not already offering, consistent, I'd love to have this, I'd love to have that, or wish that you had this, that's something that I help out with. Knowing our resources, so knowing what we may already have or finding out what we already have that you might want or be interested in. And then also, a lot of the time it's spent helping people prepare for pitching in a room, or just helping people kind of get to know how to craft a pitch. Really, wherever you are, we can meet you there and then help you get better get to the next level of whatever you're doing.
So, one of the things when I originally met Joey, we talked to him the first time, he was on our show a while back. One of the things he did was help people particularly help people outside of like the network, like LA and California and Hollywood, like people from across the globe actually, through like Skype pitches and stuff like that. Do you guys still do that?
Oh yeah, we do that all the time. We use Zoom now instead of Skype typically because it's a little more reliable. No offense to Skype, it's also great for what it is, but we use a different program called Zoom typically. And so, but yeah, we do that a ton. You know, a lot of times I feel bad. Some of these writers in Australia and stuff will get up or be up at 2, 3 a.m. in the morning to make it convenient for these LA execs, but we all do that, and I also help out writers from wherever. My schedule's a little more flexible, so it's like if you need an 8 a.m. pitch prep, we can do that because that's your 10 p.m. or whatever. But I think the internet in general has democratized a lot of, like, breaking down a lot of the barriers to entry, and so we definitely want to continue to hop on that.
That's cool. That's awesome. So what's the... I think I got an email from maybe you or maybe it was him, and it said helped so many writers gain representation in how many years? Like, what are your stats? I guess I don't know.
Current stats, I believe it's only been a year and a half, maybe a year or so. But it's 41. We've got 41 writers have gotten repped. Yeah. And I mean, that's just literally signed with representation. Yeah. Beyond that are people who already have rep, who are helping find producers, matching up producers, or people who aren't repped who are finding producers and just creating connections for possible future representation and all that stuff. So
yeah, cool. How did you end up doing this?
I met Joey through one of these years ago, back in the Happy Writers days, which was his first company. With similar services, but I met him as a writer. I just blindly found them and signed up for a coverage or a pitch prep when just Joey was doing them. And I became obsessed with him, and then I have not left him alone for the past 4 or 5 years. Yeah. And so I always joke that he just gave me this job so that it's like, well, at least I know she's got something to do for 15 to 20 hours a week other than bother me, other than be like, what are you doing? Where are you? Can you be my best friend?
You have him on a little, what's the GPS thing on your phone, the app where you can track him all the wherever he was going out.
Find my friends or whatever? Yeah. He doesn't know it, so don't tell him. But I know where he is at all times.
So when you guys meet with a writer, like somebody we could use ourselves as an example, like somebody from Orlando or way out, like you couldn't be farther away from you guys and still be in the country almost, you know. What are the most common, I guess, problems like you run into when trying to enlighten that writer to what they need to be able to do? Because like for me, I don't have very much experience pitching anything at all, because all I have got to do is talk to him about it, and because we're independent filmmakers, we just go off and do it if we decide we want to.
We just figure out how to talk our friends and people we know into giving us the equipment and their time.
Yeah. Is it a confidence thing? Is it a just like knowing what to say or how to pitch something?
Or is it a lot of practice, or maybe all of the above?
Yeah, it might be all of the above, specifically for pitching. I mean, I think everyone says this, but this business, more than many others, is all relationships. Yeah. So it makes a difference whether or not you know the person on the other side of the table, but sometimes even if you do, it's still a creative baby, so you're nervous. And so, I mean, especially because of my background in comedy, I know that you never are not nervous. You just learn to harness it, and you learn to get used to the nervousness. So, I wouldn't even say it's like confidence. You can have confidence and be really nervous. You can have practiced it and done it 100 times before and be really nervous. I think practicing helps set your mind up so that your like subconscious is on your side too. So you're not like, oh God, I've never done this before, I'll be terrible. Like you'll at least have the confidence on that string, but you're always sort of anxious and nervous when you care about something. So really, a pitch prep is doing the best you can to control the factors you have control over, which is like, am I getting out the most information the best way? Hopefully, if it comes up, am I prepared for what might come up? Do I feel confident about this? That's at least what we're sort of working on. In terms of like what writers might be up against, I think, and this sort of goes into the pitching too, a lot of times, and it's great that we break down barriers to entry, but I find a lot of times writers have 1 or maybe 2 scripts, And the problem with that is not only do you not have a huge portfolio, but even if they're wonderful scripts, there's so much pressure on that to be the script that breaks you. And it breaks you into not breaks you, but breaks you into the
Every
industry.
script will break you if you.
Every script will break you. Every creative project will break you. But but yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that I see that's hard to kind of communicate is like, you know, you got to take the pressure off yourself. This could be an Oscar award-winning, wonderful. It could be, but you've got to take the pressure off yourself and have more than one egg in that basket, because that's professional writing, is to have many, you know, this is the script I'm pitching today, and this is how I pitch this script, and this is how I interact, but this isn't the be-all, end-all. This isn't, you know.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to know, I think a lot of people who maybe are new to this might be nervous about sharing their ideas because they think someone might steal it or steal an idea within their pitch or script. What would you tell people who are nervous about sharing their idea because it's like you said, their baby? What do you tell them?
I just watched a show or a YouTube video about this the other day, and I forget the guy's name, but he basically was like, ideas are not precious, meaning even the best idea, probably someone has something similar, and I think what's more likely happening, to get like into the psychology of it, is you're scared of putting yourself out there, and so you're letting it be the fear of getting criticism about an idea that you really like, more than the actuality of like worrying about someone stealing it. Because the truth is, there's only variations. We're all telling variations of the same ideas, same themes. And I think to be too precious about it, you got to be smart about it. You know what I mean? Don't tell like your adversarial writer friend your brilliant idea and how you really made it work. Like I would probably think that that's not going to help you. But at the same time, like, you have to get it out there. And the other thing is, and maybe again this is my background on comedy, but no one's going to tell it like you are. And if they do, if the odds are they're not going to tell it. But like even in jokes, like joke stealing, and people do steal jokes, so I don't even want to touch that. But like there was a joke that I had for a while that like I saw Dane Cook do live at the Improv one night, and I was like, oh, that's Dane Cook's joke now. Like it was just one of those like, and I don't think he saw my YouTube, and I don't think he took it. I think there are sometimes things out in the ether that like, it's a story or an idea. When you flesh it out, that's where your personality and your uniqueness and your voice as a writer comes out. So the idea is just where you start, and it just can't be precious. It could be brilliant, but then if it's brilliant, get it out there, and no one can take it because you've got the most brilliant version of this idea, you know?
Yeah, I always tell myself, but in the form of telling other people, that when I was really young, I was in love with like Scorsese, and I still am, or Paul Thomas Anderson, who was my favorite director. I spent early a lot of time trying to be like that, you know. And the thing is, I'm not like that. I wasn't like that. That's not how my stories came out. And I had to like rewire my brain. It's like I can't go out and make a Scorsese movie or write, an Aaron Sorkin screenplay better than Aaron Sorkin can, but also nobody can write a Beckemeyer screenplay like Beckemeyer. There may just be less people and less awards attached to that name, but the thing is, nobody is going to be able to do you like you. So even if you take, like you were just exactly like you were just saying, take the same idea and he goes off and writes it, and it's going to be bad. And if I write it, it will be good. No.
But if we write it together, it's just okay.
It's just okay. Yeah, you dilute me a lot.
My gift.
That's your gift, yeah. No, but so back to the confidence thing. How much, almost like overconfidence do you come across from people who are convinced that, like you were saying, like the uniqueness is, I'm so convinced that this is the best thing ever.
It's my baby.
And it's really like, hey, I saw that movie twice. The first time when Harry Met Sally, blah, 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 blah. Like, do you have to, like, how do you
not crush their souls when you tell them their idea isn't as unique as they think it is?
And they're unattached to the area. They're not used to getting the shit kicked out of them. Their mom has been telling them how great they are for the last 20-something years, and they buy it. I wish I believed it, but myself, you know. But how do you train someone to not be so, I guess full of themselves,
or have their feelings attached to their idea, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's a book called Big Magic, and it's got, I don't know if you guys have read it or heard of it.
No.
It's a cool book to read for all creatives, I think.
Yeah.
And the idea is just like what the creative space is and what creative minds are. And the biggest thing that she talks about, the author, is do not treat your ideas like your babies. You end up doing it anyway.
Yeah.
You end up doing it, but to know that you need to separate yourself from that it is its own individual identity, I think helps. It's also like not super my place to be the one to crush your dreams, because for all I know, someone wants to remake Harry Met Sally. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, for all I know, you are telling it to a generation that hasn't seen that movie and wants to. So I think what probably happens with that is just people get so precious that there is no telling them no. And even if they do believe that they're like towing the line of like entitlement. And so the second you get entitled to the idea that you think that this has to be made, and it has to star Jennifer Lawrence and it has to be produced by then that's like, you know what, I've seen that happen. Like that could happen with enough confidence, or with enough like just tunnel vision about it. It's just, you need to be the type of person that Jennifer Lawrence wants to work with, because she has the world at her feet, So you can't just be like, this is the greatest thing, but it's like, well, it's the greatest thing for you to get Jennifer Lawrence attached, but what is it for her? So I think that, if it's too much entitlement, there's nothing I can do about it, and so I'll just be like, sure, I mean, pitch away. But if it's just if it's insane confidence, I came out here from the Midwest, and so I had to, my biggest hurdle has been learning confidence, because the Midwest is self-deprecating, and I grew up in that's just our humor, is like, I'm not good enough, nobody look at me. It's just literally like the MO out there.
I was born that way.
And it's fun, and there's nothing wrong with it in a lot of ways, but literally when you enter the big leagues, if you walk in and say, I'm not good enough, no one look at me, everyone will be like, okay, and they'll look elsewhere. You have to have enough confidence to truly believe in your work and truly believe that someone huge could get attached to it and enjoy it and get a lot out of it, while keeping grounded and being someone that people want to work with. It
is a weird balance, because
well, you got to keep your ego in check while being confident at the same time. I'm a director, so when like that video we did where are you God? Close enough. I'm a director.
But to be a director, no matter how humble how much humility you have, you've got a touch of God complex, because you think it should be your way, and you like totally convinced. You walk in the room, it's like, what the fuck is that doing over there? That's not supposed to be there. And you just believe that people are going to go, yep, you're right, I'm going to go do that. But it's such a thing of like, you can't really believe your own bullshit. You know what I mean? I tell my students a lot that you have to, and it sounds caustic, I guess, to them when I say it. I tell them, you have to, you make something, be proud of it, but you actually have to hate that thing, so that you don't fall in love with it and just keep doing the same thing over and over again. I tell them, you got to hate everything you make, so that you keep trying to do better every time. And it's like a weird way to say it, but I had to do that in my head, because I remember early on when I was making things and writing things, I was showing it to people, and I only wanted the good stuff, like only tell me that you love it and stuff like that, and I didn't know how to handle the back and forth. I finally had to convince myself that everything I was doing is shit. I'm trying my best. I'm proud of it when it's done, but it's never really done anyway, and it sucked. That page sucks. No, I'm gonna, And I have a couple of friends who've told me, honestly, that they feel like I've gone too far that direction, because he said, Bremer once told me that he saw me talk my way out of convincing, like I convinced somebody that it wasn't worth taking me seriously, and like you were just saying, almost, and so it is a weird balance.
Yeah, you and I were talking the other day. We were joking about what it feels like to make a film that we don't want anyone to see, because there are parts of it that we were very brave to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And now we're like, what are my parents going to think? What are my, my family and
you
friends?
think that. I already know my parents aren't going to like it. It's weird. I was just listening to an interview with the Q&A with Jeff Goldsmith. He had on Aaron Sorkin for Molly's Game. And I love listening to Aaron Sorkin talk because he's like the writer anybody would want to be. He's fucking brilliant. His dialogue is like butter, And but he's just like, oh, I don't really know. I sit and it's great to listen to him talk about how days will go by and he doesn't know what to put down on the page. He struggles with it. And then he said then suddenly he gets an idea and he forces it out of himself, and it sounds like he really fights for it. But when you see like A Few Good Men or The Social Network or any of those movies, you think, oh my God, he makes it look so easy. But it's great to hear him talk about how he basically suffers through it the way like a real writer, any writer does. But he's like on the pedestal. He's the only writer that really ever makes me jealous. When I saw Moneyball, I don't give a shit about baseball, but I walked out of there going, oh my God, like I will never write anything that good. It was so good, and I don't even care about baseball.
Yep.
Yeah.
So anyway, about you.
Well, I mean, I think in all of your saying, part of the beauty of like the collaborative element of filmmaking is that if you want to take the super self-deprecating, this is a very good route, you could, but you could also be like, hey, we made something cool here. We did the best we could, and it's never finished because it's art. But, I think what you're saying when you're like, you hate it is you're protecting yourself from being like, I'll never do that again. Yeah. And instead, like, sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I did that. But like, I always want to do better. When I have a really good set, I'm like stand-up set, I'm never like, and I retired before ever having a Comedy Central set. It's just like, I got to do it again. I got to get perfect. I want to try it again. And so it's like, I think it sounds like it's like a protection method, but that's when you can lean on the other people and you can be like, well, we brought great minds together to create this cool thing.
I have a question though, along what you're saying, because when it comes to when you're a stand-up comedian, you're basically a writer, but you write live in front of an audience. Because if a joke doesn't work, you might get rid of it, or you might say, oh wait, it's this part. It was doing fine until I got this part, so let me figure out how to fix it.
She was saying that she's funnier when she doesn't curse. People laugh when she doesn't curse.
Right. Well, for me particularly, it was very fun learning that too, because I'd get up and be like, oh fuck, and just the room would get sucked out. But when I'm like, oh, adorable, weird, people are like, yeah, I get that. Like, even though I get off stage and I'm like, oh fuck, like nobody, it's a persona. But you definitely do right while you're on stage,
Yeah, but I feel like that's what all writers need to get comfortable with, is the rewriting process and the throwing it out there. That's another thing about being a comedian, is you're vulnerable. You're just out there. You feel emotionally naked, and when people don't receive what you're doing in the way you wanted, it can, be devastating sometimes. But as a writer, you need to be okay with showing people and listening to the feedback and not taking it personally, but seeing is there validity to that? Do I need to fix this part?
The crazy thing is that people actually go up on the stage and tank and then go, I want to do that again.
Yeah. Oh,
because it's terrifying. Yeah. And it's also amazing that stand-up like comedy is it's like a performance as much as it is a writing gig, I guess. And it's so cool that to hear you guys talk about getting it perfect, but what's so perfect about it is how that seems. Like, it doesn't seem like that was a joke. It's a joke you
you do it like it's the first
top
time.
Of my head. Like, Mike Birbiglia is really good at that. Yeah. Like, making it seem like it's just a conversation I'm having with this large group of people here just laughing at everything I say.
But he said it like 1,000 million times.
Yeah, especially by the time it makes it to a special. And I think that is a good, like, stand-up comedy has made me a better writer, but at the end of the day, it still is your creative baby. You have the control over it. And with stand-up, you get that immediately. So I get to choose whether or not I try that joke again the same way. If it's like, whatever, it could be something the way I said it. It could be the audience, just, I didn't set myself up right for it. It could be whatever, but it doesn't always have to be the joke, and you don't have to just immediately throw it out, which is what a lot of people take when they get notes. They're just like, I guess I got to change it, and then they lose themselves in the process. And it's like, stay true to yourself and your point of view.
So, what made you? You started out as a writer. You said you started out as a writer, and then what made you think, hey, I think I want to get up on stage and suffer in front of an audience?
So my story's a weird one, just because like the very first thing I watched a play in third grade, and then it was Fiddler on the Roof, put on by I was in first grade, and it was put on by the third graders, and I went home and like wrote my own version that I would star in. So I've always been the little like, oh, you write it for yourself and also star in it. So I've always done both. But yeah, like, I mean, opportunities that I find, especially like through things like Roadmap, are ways that you can break down barriers for the writer. And so, because it can be devastatingly lonely to only do writing. It can just be, you just sit there and you feel powerless and you feel like you have something amazing and you don't have any feedback for it. You don't know what to do. So, and it can be really hard just to be the actor too, you know, because you're just constantly told to this, to that, not good enough, to whatever. So it's like, for me, having both and having outlets to do both on my terms and be open to do them on other people's terms is the happiest place.
I'm wondering, do you ever, when you have a new script that you're working on, do you create a new set to try out some of the stuff? You know, like, do you put some of the stories that you're wanting to put in your script in your set so that you can work it out, or do you do any of that?
Oh, that's sort of a brilliant idea. I haven't yet.
I'm a genius!
No, don't tell him that. I'll never hear the end of it. Oh, God.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't. Just because my stand-up, for me, it's more like I get an idea and then I figure out which of the little buckets that I do it might be best in. So sometimes it's just a tweet. Sometimes it's like, oh, a tweet turned into a joke, or sometimes it's a joke I can sell as a stand-up. Then other times it's like a feeling and a situation, and that needs to be done in a movie. You know what I mean? Or like that just needs to, that's the language that needs to come out with.
So what are some of the top things you hear from executives or managers or agents or whoever that you hear from them that they wish writers were better at or did more of or less of?
I honestly think the biggest thing is that confidence issue, because you know, the second you are too nervous, not even too, and again, it's fine to be nervous because it means you care. When I'm not nervous before I hit the stage, I give no shits about that show, and that's telling, and we're all wasting our time. But I think it's that people put so much pressure on themselves, and these are humans on the other end who just want to hear a story told to them, who just want to learn about you. You know, there's like a lot less pressure in a pitch room than I think, especially initial pitches, than people tend to act upon. And so I think that's like the biggest thing is, and because of those nerves and because of the pressure put on, a pitch can go downhill very quickly. They can gloss over things, they can talk too fast and not get things, they can not answer questions because they're so in their head. I mean, all those, for me, I think most often stem out of the nervousness. And so I think having confidence in yourself and just making it so that you're not like feeling like you're not apologizing, you're not wasting someone's time for them listening to you, you know, like it's a pleasure for everyone. It's a symbiotic relationship, not just like a parasite getting this executive's ear for whatever amount of time you have.
It sounds like you're almost recommending by what you're saying that people don't make sure that when they're pitching it to you or, you know, someone important, that it's not their first time pitching it. It sounds
to me, I mean, if you're pitching to me, I'm not an executive, so I'm more than happy to help you out with your pitch. I just did a pitch prep earlier, and this person was so nervous, and I was like, listen, I don't own a studio, I cannot help you. I am just here to like practice your pitch so that when you get in front of these people, you are less nervous. Like, I for sure cannot help you on this, nor will I'm too busy right now. So like, you have no pressure with me, you know. But if you have friends that you can practice it with, if you can practice it with yourself, whatever you can do, that's sort of like your own little confidence. Whatever you've got to do to get yourself to the place where you can control what you can control. Because you can't control how you're going to feel that day. You're going to be nervous, you know? So just like know that the nerves come from being excited about the project, not because you didn't do what you could do to prepare for it.
Are there like pitch do's and don'ts? Because I sort of heard some things that just by you telling the stories that it sounded like, oh, okay, I'm making mental notes. I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't do that. What would you recommend to people who aren't used to pitching?
Yeah, I would first say, after you hear all the recommendations I'm about to say, you can throw all of them out. Because at the end of the day, pitching is completely personal, and you know your story better than anyone, and you know how to connect with an exec or whatever. So, like, definitely throw everything out that I'm about to say if it doesn't resonate.
Yeah.
Or work for you.
That's what we say.
In general, I'm just saying, because I think we're in this like highly educated society, which is great in some ways, but then on the other hand, everyone's like, got to get the, the 3-letter degree in order to be qualified, and I got to understand structure and all this stuff. And it's like, at the end of the day, we're still in an art. So, but what I will say, what I tell people is I like to start big and go small. And I always like to prepare it for way less time than I'm given, so that I can go slow. I have time to take pauses. I'm not thrown off if I'm interrupted. And if I start big and go small, if I'm interrupted, I still have plenty of information. I mean, I think what happens a lot of times is people will want to get the entire plot out of their story in a pitch or of their season or whatever. And keep in mind, a pitch is to entice them to read the actual script. It's your movie trailer. It's not the movie itself. So it's, get the big stuff out, get where we are, what it's similar to, get your log line out, and then dive into it and be passionate and excited about it, and do your best to get what you can out, and don't worry about it if you didn't get everything, because you shouldn't. Sometimes people get so plot heavy, and then this happens, and then that means it's like, tell them why they should be excited about this. Tell them a general story. The assumption is, if it's an ensemble, that you're gonna have a great ensemble. But tell me who I'm following in that. I'm following Michael Scott. I'm not following the rest of the ensemble. I care the most about Michael Scott. The assumption is a comedy ensemble will have great people around him. Yeah. But I'm following Amy Poehler's character in Parks and Rec. I don't care about Aziz, even though Aziz is great. If you're pitching it, you're pitching Amy Poehler's character. So I think that's the big thing, that people want to get everything out, and it's just not necessary. The point of a pitch is to entice them. You're selling. It's a sales thing. It's not a lesson.
Do you find that people get so caught up in the perfect presentation that we had someone on our show once where we interviewed them, and they were so caught up in what they wanted to say that they wouldn't let us talk to them or have a conversation. They wouldn't stop to answer our questions. They would say, just let me finish, and they were just like reading, and we were trying to help them be more conversational.
Organic,
we're trying to turn it into a conversation, and they just wanted to read the word for word thing.
All right, so now the next step,
flexible, one of the quotes I've read about being a teacher, which is something along the lines of, as soon as you can throw everything out the window and then just pretend that this is on the lesson plan, and just that's the day you become a real teacher. So it's like it happens like inside in the moment where it just someone's asking you for something, and if you would just nod and say yeah, you could maybe get them to sit up for a minute instead of you just like regurgitating some copywriting on a that you have memorized or something like that.
100%. Yeah, I mean, especially with the nature of like roadmap general pitch sessions that we have, if it's 8 minutes, people will prepare 8 minutes that they'll sit there and read, and it just is like no one wants to get read to. And like when I do stand-up and stuff, you can tell, like you guys were saying earlier, it's more fun when it feels off the cuff, right? Even if it's not. And a lot of the best comedians respond to something that happens in the moment. And man, the audiences are just like, oh my God, I just thought there's no way they could have prepared that. Like, it's just, it's like, because you're just living in the moment, and as a professional, you can always go back to what it is. So like when you're pitching, of course you would love to get all this stuff out. Yeah. But as a professional, if 2 seconds in, this major producer is like, wait, do you have an Ohio accent? And you're just like, sure do, lived there for 4 years, like then you've got a connection with this person, and eventually you'll probably get back to the pitch itself.
Yeah.
You don't need to necessarily worry about getting completely derailed, but when you go back to it, they'll be like, oh, that Ohio person, or whatever it is, like they'll have kind of a personal connection, because that's all we're ever doing in general is creating personal connections with people and hoping that they like what we have to say.
Well, if for somebody who's trying to sell their screenplay or create a pitch or something like that, should they work on, what should they work on first? Like the elevator pitch, the 30-second thing, and just get it down to like one sentence thing and then branch out from there?
But also, could you explain what a logline is? Like, should it be a logline, elevator pitch, what? Because a lot of people might not know.
And I also want to know if they have, like you said, an 8-minute pitch, like how long should the actual thing be, 2 or 3 minutes, so they can talk for hopefully talk for 5 minutes after, or just all that.
Yeah. So
begin.
Yeah, so
begin.
Begin. General pitching, I would say, whatever it takes to get you to your log line, do it. For some people, that means creating it first and then working up from there. For others, it means writing out a 4-page summary and then working down, just hacking until you get to the core of whatever it is. So, your log line is 1 to 3 max sentences, just max, about what it is what we're watching. And it should be active. It should include the who, the what happened, the why, the where, just very simple, active, engaging logline. There's tons of free resources with like log lines of things everyone would recognize that you can see and you can kind of use as, oh, that's how they broke down Breaking Bad. Cool. There's like the Breaking Bad one, which I believe is on IMDb or something. It's just like perfect. It's a 1-sentence perfect log line of a fantastic, several season show. So, and then the elevator pitch is the assumption that you get, we sometimes get criticism, or we have people have chilled out about it, about how our pitches are like 8 minutes, let's say, and many of them are 8 minutes. People are like, that's not enough time. Well, it is, because you should always be starting with an elevator pitch. In the hopes that you ever get someone's attention for long enough, you should be able to have about a minute of your pitch, and then continue on from there to 2 if they seem more interested, and then 3 if they're more, and then if you're lucky, you finally get that meeting. So
in the Twitter universe, everything, no one's going to listen past 30 seconds anyway, and if they do, okay.
Well, and they've already jumped to their conclusion. That's why, for me, like, on the one hand, doing the multi-hyphenate thing is like frustrating because it's just like I'm going like this instead of like this, you know. But on the other hand, they all feed each other. So, like, as an actress, I know I have about 10 to 15 seconds of first impression, and then another 30 to try and get them on my side. It almost doesn't matter from the time I say the second sentence in a audition, how I do. They've already decided one way or another, so it's like, when you're pitching, it's a similar idea. So and it doesn't all have to be negative. It sounds negative, like they've decided, but they may love me. I might walk in, make them laugh, or like give off an energy that they're into. Like, it's the same with your pitches. So that's part of the reason I say start big. Start with your big concept and then work your way down. If they're giving you nothing in response, if they're just sitting there taking it in, then you have plenty to talk about. You can go into the plot details. You can talk about your act 2, break, how it transitions into act. You've got 90 pages to 100 pages worth of stuff to talk about. It's that you want to give them a chance to talk. To me, there's more skill in that. So.
Is the trick to only take up 8 minutes of their time, or to make them want to talk to you for 15 minutes? Or 20 minutes.
So, I mean, we won't allow you to, roadmap specifically, like we don't let you go over, but I think the trick is to make them want to talk to you again, right? So when I was first doing this, before I was like working for them and everything, but I would craft for 8-minute pitches, I'd have about 5, and I'd have a comfortable 5. So like, I wouldn't be thrown off by whatever. It was short, it was sweet, it gave comps, it gave the concept, it gave the tone, it gave what we're watching. Started big, went small, went through my acts really quickly. But if they interrupted me, so be it. If they had a question, so be it. Like, we had plenty of time. And then usually anyone worth their salt is going to be interested enough to ask a couple questions afterwards. Yeah. And if they don't, and you're done early, then, you could choose, depending on how you're feeling out the situation, you could choose to take your time, or you could choose to be out of it, Because keep in mind, I think that's the other thing about putting pressure on yourselves, you're sussing them out as much as they're sussing you out. Yeah. So, just because you're pitching, there's some comedy executives, just because you're pitching a comedy executive, which has happened to me in the past, doesn't mean that they're going to be very pleasant or funny or enjoyable. And like, do I want to spend a year, 2 years developing with this like miserable person who's just glaring at me? No. So I'm out, like, you have power too as the writer. You're not just dependent on this like person. So
that's an interesting point. I mean, it's true because, like we were saying earlier, the idea may dime a dozen, but it's your take or version of the idea that they want to buy, if or not, you know. So so it's not like you need them, but they need you. So it's not like you're the only one that's in need of something. So that's interesting. You know what I always feel terrible at is writing log lines, like the summary. So I always feel like every log line I've ever written is just shit. It's like and it's hard because you've written, normally I don't start there. I just sort of like, you know, outline, then I write my script, and then I will go back and think, well, how do I break this down? If I need to, how do I break this down into one sentence, or two or three sentences? And it's hard because you've got the whole thing in your head, and the screenplay is 110 pages or 100 pages for a reason. It's because you needed that 110 pages to tell that story. So it's hard to go, well, now I only need one sentence, so here we go, you know.
Yeah, I was just finding in my notes, there's like, if you want the little template that sometimes is helpful, it's just like who, trigger, dilemma, goal. So that's all your logline really needs to have. And the who and the dilemma can get swapped around. So you have the dilemma, the trigger, the who, and the goal. But I think, you know, and you're gonna miss. I mean, you're gonna leave stuff out, but that's the assumption of a logline. You know, like I don't even think in the Breaking Bad one Jesse's mentioned. You know, like
that's
I don't
crazy.
even think
that is crazy.
There's a Jesse. I'm pretty sure it's because it's just about Walt. You know, like that's essentially who we're following. But you don't mention the wife. You don't mention the son. You don't mention any. You know, like you maybe the son is like a special needs child or something might be mentioned. But other than that, you're like, because you're just gonna leave stuff out. That's not the point of it. You know, everyone wants their everything to be included, and it's like you just got to see it as a different outfit. It's just your log line is.
It's maybe almost like the last rewrite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. What else? What else? Just keep talking.
We got 20 more minutes. Why don't you go into your routine?
But yeah, tell us a little about you. You said you act and you write, and you're a comedian. Were you a theater kid in high school?
Sort of, and not really. Like I was always lucky to go to small schools where you could do everything. So I was able to do like sports and theater, and never, you know, there weren't. Anytime I'm like, oh, I'm not an actress, I'll hang out with actors, and I'm like, oh, I love them so much. They're the worst, and I love them. They're so over the top, and everyone's counting calories, and they're the worst. And then I'll hang out with writers, and I'm like, oh, they're the worst. I love them so much. Everyone's like worrying about one word and stuff. So I'm definitely like, anytime I try and pretend I'm one without the other, it doesn't usually last very long or go very well. So I like all of it, and for me it's always been comedic. So I do improv, like that was my gateway drug. That's what I lived in Chicago for a while. That's what I did there. I do sketch comedy out here, and then I just forced myself to do stand-up because I didn't know if I didn't like it or if I was scared of it, because I just never did it. And I think that's just an important thing in life, is when you're like obsessed with something. So I was like, well, you don't get to decide until you do X number of shows. And it was just like, once you hit that number, you get to decide. And by like 5 shows, I was like, oh, I love it. I was just so scared. I'm still scared. You know, it's just...
Do you do weekly stuff somewhere, or just regular? Or do you do is it like you can be found somewhere on a weekly basis?
You can find me on a monthly basis.
On a monthly basis.
Somewhat weekly. The Pack Theater is a theater out here that's like essentially what UCB was maybe 10 years ago. Like it's young and hungry and brand new. And so I do monthly shows there. I'm on a sketch team, a house sketch team there, and I also produce a show called Book Report, which is inspired by children's books, just sketches inspired by children's books, but very much not G-rated. And I do that. So I do that regularly out here. And then, I mean, I've been doing more stand-up, but I'm getting hitched, as I mentioned before, and so I just, most of my free time is dedicated to, like, securing this other man to be financially responsible for me,
Well, I'm problem solved. Problem solved. Yeah. So,
once I get him to sign that paper, I'll go back to stand-up.
How does he respond to you referring to it as getting hitched?
I mean, at this point, he's so beat down. I think he's just like, whatever. Let's just get it done.
Hey, that's how you and I work.
Yeah, he wore me down.
You just get worn down.
No, in a not gay way at all. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
You took that to a weird place.
You took it to a weird place when you. So I had one more question. I had another question about writers out there. There's like every time you flip on the computer or somewhere, there's a book somebody's trying to sell you, like some really great books, like Sid Field's screenplay, all the and the writers.
Well, there's Hero's Journey,
Bible,
Journey.
All those things,
All kinds of stuff.
But it kind of feels like sometimes, like if you're not careful, you could just buy someone's piece of shit that they're just trying to sell you because you're an eager, creative person. And, when I first heard of Happy Writers, and I think I may have asked Joey this when we talked to him too, is like, how much pushback did you get from people thinking that, you're just trying to take advantage of writers all across the world that will gladly pay someone to tell them, you're great, you're going to be great. Here, let's put you in front of this person and pay us and all that stuff. So how much pushback do you guys get? Or has it sort of gotten easier as you've developed a track record with people and gotten like a circle of people, a network of people that have like gotten something out of it?
Yeah, I definitely think that, like, with roadmap writers now, we don't run into that as much. I certainly think you're always going to run into that with any service, especially intangibles. Like, I paid for this, I didn't necessarily get this physical thing I expected.
Yeah.
So anytime you've got an intangible, you're probably going to get that. But I think the proof is in the pudding. Joey works like crazy, as does Dorian and the whole team, to really care and to really create stuff and have things of value. And so, to think to get that for free in general is like, just on an energetic basis, is like, you don't get anything for free because then you have no investment in it,
Yeah.
So, and I think, and they're spending a lot of time and energy creating those opportunities. So that's like their full time, so you're paying for someone to spend every hour of every day creating opportunities for you. And I think, of course, at first there's probably a lot of pushback, but at this point it's like, if you're going to be that worried about it, then don't do it. Like, we're certainly not here to try and hustle anybody. It just is what it is. And there's enough people and enough, at this point, like, a lot of the new writers come in because someone got something exciting or an opportunity, and so they're telling fellow writers about it. And there's always people who complain. So we always get worried, especially Joey and Dorian, like, worry sometimes about, if there's a Reddit strand or someone, but it's like, it's sort of that, there's like a theory about that, but if the truck driver is driving fine, you're probably not going to call the "how am I driving" number on the back of the truck, right? You only call on the one time that you see the guy swerving. So it's like, of course, people are going to have bad experiences. They're going to come in with their own expectations. We're all human. Things can happen, but like, I know that at the core, their intention is so good, and there's so many people who are getting so much out of it that it's like, if you're going to be complaining or if it's not what you want, then best of luck, move on, and if it is, great.
What do people sign on for? Do they sign on for a retainer, like where you have a monthly sit down with someone, or is it weekly, or is it by the session, or,
There's totally different offerings. So we've got like tier groups, so you can like do marketing. If you've already got a script, you can you have monthly programs.
Yeah.
And then there's like a top tier program, and I think you have to get invited into the first tier. You may be able to join, but I believe you have to be invited into the next two just to kind of retain a level of like, the executives who work in this tier expect a certain level of script prepared and expect like a certain type of writer who has a number of things in their portfolio. So the expectations as you move up the tier level just become higher. And a lot of the writers who sign are top tier because they're sitting there with these strong things, and we're just getting them in front of execs who are ready to sign people who may not necessarily be the same executives who will listen to someone who's up and coming. Maybe, but maybe not. So there's those. And then we also have just like general education programs. So without the monthly tier things, you can also just sign up for classes, like finish your fucking script as a class, and it's just literally.
Is that the name of the class? That is for a writer. That is for a writer. Yeah.
It's just done, and it's like, that's a class you can sign up for. There's like there's certain like one-offy classes and clinics and coverage. You can always get coverage. You can get mentorships, monthly mentorship programs with certain executives, and then the other, which is just the pitch sessions. So that's like another. The pitch sessions are kind of the least amount of commitment, and not that that's good or bad. It's just like what do you have available to you, time or energy, or what interests you. So there's all those offerings. So all that, and I'm sure more I'm forgetting.
What about helping people with do you find that writers need as much of a social media presence as like an actor or a personality does?
No,
so
I don't think so.
Yeah, I personally don't think so either. But I was wondering if you guys talk to people about that stuff, because just the way people come off, like social media is like an angry place these days, and it's hard to balance between being yourself and also not being, I guess, offensive or just I'm going to rule out half of you because I don't even want to talk to any of you because you don't believe in the exact same thing I think or feel, or, you know, the way I feel today is like I hate all of you. So, like, you know, and it's harder for me as a filmmaker who's trying to develop an audience, you know, I guess you could say, to not be totally plastic, all smiles, everything's great, to also being honest about how I feel about certain things without being, I guess, like angry about it, or like I'm not sure the right word, but does that make sense?
Yeah, I think what you're saying is like similar. What actors sort of and personalities have to naturally do in order to sell themselves better, that writers don't have to do, is create their brand, right? So they have to get really clear on what they're selling and who they're selling and who they're attracting. Whereas with writers, theoretically, you can kind of slippery get into any personality that you want, because you can take on another person's voice because you're a magic alchemist with word power. So I think that's like the difference. But as a filmmaker, I would say if you are trying to get traction and trying to create an audience, that's a different breed, right? Because you could find your brand. You can still find your clear voice. And I think a lot of, you know, it may be smart of some writers to create that anyway, because people like on social media, and especially in like Instagram, which isn't yet a gross cesspool of sadness. I think people like to see what's happening. They like to know the behind the scenes. They like to know the good days and the bad, because it's inspiring to them either way if you're willing to share it, you know. So I think that's kind of what it sounds like it's talking about. Writers haven't ever necessarily needed brand, but in general, in a world where people like to share and attract audiences, it's smart to find it and to kind of start to draw and create it that way.
Well, do you have any final?
Yeah, I was gonna say, where do people find? First of all, where can people go to find out more about Roadmap, and then where can people go to find out more about you?
If they want to check out some of your comedy.
Yeah, sure. So I'll give you 3 answers to that. Roadmap is roadmapwriters.com. You can always email me. I'm Brianna at roadmapwriters.com. Or you can just Google Roadmap Writers. You can see all our offerings. Our website's constantly updated. It's got all sorts of stuff. So that's very exciting. And it's the best. It really is like a great place. If you have most people have very positive experiences. If you have a negative one, tell us. We're like humans. Probably we can screw up, and we actively try and make it a positive place so that people have hope that maybe their creative projects can get made. So that's Roadmap. I'm BrianaHansen.com is a lot of my stuff. I'm also very Googleable. I am not very safe if someone wanted to follow me, because I am constantly telling you where I am. So that's my stuff is up online. I'm also in a bit of a transformation period. I'm like figuring out how to rebrand in many ways. So you can find a ton of stuff online. I don't know how much of it is good, but you can find it. And it's out there. And then I'm also creating a thing, which we sort of dabbled on before, but I'm starting a new program where I'm doing like speaking and essentially like group coaching and mentorship programs, and that's called Spirited Warrior, and it's just brand new, so brand spanking new to the people watching live, but it'll kind of have a general launch in April when some of my personal life calms down and I'm able to really get clarity on it. But that's like confidence coaching is kind of what I'm naturally charismatic, and also I've read every single book on charisma and constantly read books on self-help and improvement, and just am like, how do you get to be a good person? So instead of just being like trying to pretend like I'm not that person, I'm leaning hard into her and just being like, do you want help? I can help you. So that's kind of
be better. Stop doing that.
So tell us then, what is your favorite, your current favorite, or maybe your all-time favorite? Like you said, charisma or self-help book. Like what's your top one?
A top, God. Oh, there's so many good ones. I'm currently reading the Master Key System, so that's going to be one of my favorites just because I'm currently reading it. But I have to say, especially I think for women, it's important for women to read You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero. And generally, You Are a Badass is a great one. It's very woman-oriented, but I find that to be a good one. And then, like, just some of the classics, like Think and Grow Rich, they're all, everyone says the same thing. They're just, what ways are you going to take it in? You know, like, how are you going to hear it? And then years ago, when I was in college, Dane Cook came through with Tourgasm, and Gary Goldman was on Tourgasm, and I just thought they were the funniest people on the planet. And the time I didn't know I wanted to do stand-up at all. Afterwards, I met them, and Gary Goldman recommended to me a book, The Magic of Believing, and I probably read that like once a year. And so it changed my, you know, it's just like a recharge, like anything else. You're like, that's reminding me of things I already know that I just need to like redo. Because the problem is in any world, the second you start to see a step up, you stop all the things that got you that very foundation, right? So it's like, oh, well, I achieved this, and then all of a sudden it starts going back to exactly what it's always been. And it's like, well, that's because you're not actively still seeking out the thing that got you to that next level. You know, otherwise we're all just very comfortable in whatever level we're at. And
we call that sharpening the saw.
Yeah. I was just thinking about Stephen Covey books, like The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Did you read The 8th Habit, which is actually my favorite?
No, I haven't. He pitched it a little too hard to me at the end of 7 Habits, and so I was like, no, I make my own decisions.
7's good. I can't fit one more.
The 8th Habit is the only self-help book that has ever made me cry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was in the first, like, I was listening to an audiobook, so that had a little bit to do with it, the delivery of the voice. But just thinking about the stuff that he was talking about at the very beginning in the first couple of chapters, it hit me at the perfect time in my life. I guess I needed to hear it. You know, one of those things where you, when an angel is needed, one will appear, sort of a thing. I mean, that was it for that point in time, and I was miserable. I was like working with my family, my dad and my brother's family business. I am a true creative person, and I was in a like doing asphalt restoration in probably the worst 2 years of my fucking life. And I was married. We had a kid. I mean, we just had a baby, but I was absolutely miserable. So I started reading The 8th Habit because it had just come out, and it just like hit me, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, I needed to hear it. Mm-hmm. So I can't guarantee that response if you ever were to read it, but it worked on me. It worked for me. You know,
I will definitely add that. That's definitely been on the list. I just haven't. But for me, that was I recently read You Are a Badass at Making Money, and it was on audiobook, and I read it 3 times. I mean, it's just been what I've been listening to in traffic for like 6 weeks, because it didn't necessarily, it hit me that way where I was like, oh, fuck. Like it just, you know, literally just like, oh, fuck. And then you're like, I got to do it again. I got to do it again. I got to hear that again and just really embody it. But those things make all the difference. And I think so much of, you know, in general, creative thoughts, if I may end on a somewhat creative thought, but like in general, I think we think that everything has to be really hard, but long hours doesn't have to mean hard work. And so we tend to like equate hard, tough, arduous work with like that equals happiness. And really, it's like if you're loving what you do, and it's something that's the biggest reason I started Spirited Warriors. I'm like I'm a good employee, and I'm a good employee for Roadmap because I like them. Mm-hmm. But in general, I'm a terrible employee because I don't care about your thing, you know. And
I know the feeling.
And I'm like, I'm only good. Like, I just don't care. I like Roadmap, so I'm good with them. But that's it. But other than that, I'm like, at the end of the day, I don't care. And so I kept trying to find things that, and I've done a bunch of jobs too. I'm a little bit older, probably than what I look. Thank you so much. But I'm like, but I'm a little bit, and I just have been like trying to do these jobs, and I'm like, this is just miserable. And I'm not good at a lot of things, but I'm really good at these specific things. Yeah. So why not just like find ways in this beautiful digital space that we have to capture audiences everywhere to like do things that you love. And that's true for filmmaking, it's true for writing, it's true for whatever. You can lean into the things that really bring you alive and find ways to make that viable instead of just doing the old traditional route of like 9 to 5 and then you get to be happy. And it's like, that's
the rat race.
It doesn't work that way.
Well, up until like 5 minutes ago, I don't think I've ever heard of the term confidence coach anyway. So
you can just put any word in front of coach and make that a job.
Yeah. No, but a confidence coach, I mean, shit, if you're going to teach somebody something, confidence coaching sounds like a good place to start because people are so, like, even just going through life, you know, like paying attention to human nature and stuff like that. Everybody's afraid of something. Even the people that are afraid of nothing, they're, I mean, part of what people are afraid of nothing are afraid of is being accused of being afraid of something. You know what I mean? So they have to prove that they're not. So it's an interesting thing, and it's such a psychological. It's like a mind fuck.
It's just a mind game, and luckily for me, I've gotten beat down so much through auditions and through comedy that I'm like, oh, I've learned what it takes to like protect my little light. That's all really I know. Cool. That's it.
That's really cool. All right. Well, okay. So we did. What about Twitter, Instagram? Are you?
Yeah. I'm all over those.
All over those. Okay.
I think the Briana Hansen is my Twitter, and Briana Comedy is my Instagram.
Okay.
So, but I think they are probably also on my website. At some point, one of the days, I was productive and probably put them on.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you very much. It was a good conversation. We're doing the video thing now, so it's a little harder for us. We used to just sit in front of a microphone and talk, and it's so much different, but nicer to be able to actually make eye contact with somebody, even though if it's like digitally, like we're digitally making eye contact. Yeah. But it's nice to be able to talk to somebody. You have been great. It was great. Thank you.
Good. I'm so glad. Thank you guys so much. And please check out, Roadmap Writers and all the stuff that they have to offer. And please reach out to me too anytime. They all are accessible. I'm just the least busy, at least in the Roadmap world. So
cool.
Reach out.
Yeah.
Well,
we're working on a couple of scripts that pretty soon I think we're going to be wanting to go through the process with you guys.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
And especially for pitching them, like pitch prep, and a lot of that stuff. I should also mention, like, pitch preps with me and a lot of the things that are offered through me are free. So people are always like, oh, well, pitch prep. I'm like, well, I'm free. Roadmap pays me so that writers have someone to practice with them.
Shit.
So, like,
let me put you on speed dial.
Now we're serious.
Put you on speed dial.
Sometimes people think we're trying to upsell them, and I'm like, no, literally, like, it's just... we want to make sure people feel valued and know that they have, we want to help them out as much as humanly possible. So.
That's cool because you don't have to do that.
Yeah, my confidence coach stuff is not.
No. But I mean, you guys, it's not something that you have to offer for free because it's definitely something that even if somebody gets like one little nugget out of 20 or 30 minute talk with you or something, whatever it is, that's worth money. That's worth paying for, you know what I mean? So
the hope is that you'll feel you'll know that Roadmap really isn't just, it's not, people will say whatever they want to, but it's really not out just for your money. Like we're really there to try and get you as confident as you can be and break down barriers. So
all right, cool, great. Well, if you want to follow us, I'm Becca Meyer on Twitter and Instagram.
I'm the Balding Ewok.
The Balding Ewok. Anyway, so that's it. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Brianna, for talking to us. It was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
See you.
Hope to chat with you guys again soon.
Film Reverie Podcast is a production of Super Mega Ultra Entertainment and is produced by Michael Beckemeyer and Bradley Kingston. If you're enjoying this podcast, please be sure to leave us a 5-star review in iTunes. And visit filmreverie.com to listen to past episodes, and be sure to click like or subscribe wherever you find us. That's it for this time. We'll see you again next week with another episode of Film Reverie.